politically incorrect, rocker Dave Matthews, comedy legend Carl Reiner, that Regan woman Judith Regan, and Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Clarence Page. And now, the star of Politically Incorrect, Bill Maher.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. You're most kind. And the big story again today is the FBI crime lab. Anybody involved in a crime, well, you probably get away with it because this FBI crime lab is in such bad shape. And now the new wrinkle today is that they're saying it's so bad that they may have to reopen old cases that had FBI evidence. Not only that, the worst part is they're going to have to change the ending of dozens of episodes of the Mod Squad. Now, here's some interesting news that is especially applicable if you are an American Indian in the armed forces, which is a small group, but the Supreme Court has ruled that if you are that, you can take peyote, which, which means when the Army says you can see the world without ever leaving your bunk, they're not kidding. As you probably know, over the last couple of years, the Mitsubishi company has had a lot of problems with sexual harassment charges, and it turns out, yesterday it was said in the paper, that over 30% of the women at this company, at Mitsubishi, have either been sexually harassed or have witnessed it. And the company said they're going to try to take some steps. They said they are dedicated to finding another way to testing safety in the back seat. Apparently... Now, there was a big fight in the Senate this week. Do you know what it was about? A dog. Whether you could allow a dog. There's never been a dog on the Senate floor, but one of the senators has an aide who is blind and needs a guide dog. And first, Robert Byrd, senator, stickler on the rules, said no, they were not going to allow the dog. And then someone pointed out that the dog actually had fewer accidents than Strom Thurmond. So they let the dog. And finally, this is nice news. Christopher Reeve yesterday got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, which I think is very nice. And yes, it's on the sidewalk right next to Jan Michael Vincent. Not the star, actually next to Jan Michael Vincent, which is sad. Anyway, thanks for coming. It's all been satirized for your protection. He is a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the Chicago Tribune, and his latest collection of essays is called Showing My Color. Clarence Page. There's Clarence. Hey, man. Good to see you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Writer, director, performer, lover, legend, and 12-time Emmy winner. His new movie is Bette Midler's That Old Feeling I Saw It Is Very Funny. Carl Reiner. Very funny picture, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
The controversial president of Regan Company Publishing and the host of That Regan Woman, Judith Regan. Yes. There she is.
Hello.
No, I don't have a book on you. Thank you very much. There's your book. I should have plugged that before. And finally, his first album, Under the Table and Dreaming, went triple platinum. Its follow-up is called Crash. Dave Matthews. Come on, Dave. Nice to see you. I have this. Well, okay.
I've never done a court service.
Okay. Folks, he's not going to sing.
I wish I was, though.
Wow.
I'm more comfortable doing that.
I guess that shows us where...
Why don't you let him sing? Why don't you let him sing one note and you'll feel more comfortable?
Carl,
Thank you.
Because I want to talk about puberty. Now,
Have you gone through it?
yes, I have. And that's the point. When I went through it, I was a lot older than kids are doing it today, which sounds like a joke, but it's not a joke. This was front page news last week. Puberty signs evident in 7- and 8-year-old girls. Did you see this in the paper?
Yes,
I mean,
yes. I have an 8-year-old son at home who's very excited about this. Seriously, seriously.
Well, I don't know what to
Follow that up, Bill.
I don't know what to say about this. I mean, this is shocking news. How could this be? 7 and 8 is very young, and it says that, yes, they are developing breasts and pubic hair in 7 and 8, changes that often confuse and alarm them.
But you know, I just have to say, my sister told me this recently, that when we moved to South Africa in 1980, and she was leaving her school, where she was the only one that hadn't gone into puberty. You know, everyone else had boobs and hairy armpits, and she was about 11. So we went back to South Africa, and she started to sprout. And 6 months later, she went to school, and I think she realized it was a very traumatic moment for her when she was up doing a little stage play with all the other girls, that she was the only one that had gushes hair coming out from under her arms. So it's an American phenomenon. That's kind of funny.
Well, I think it is in a sense, because I think that what
it does say U.S. girls.
I think what it indicates is a serious loss of innocence. And I think that if we look at what's going on in this culture, children are growing up too fast. And any woman knows that her menstrual cycle is tremendously affected by things like emotions and experiences and what's happening.
You're saying because of what's going on in the culture, it actually causes physical...
I think it's
believe
hammered.
that's true.
Very well
I believe
be.
that's
It
true.
might.
Yes, I do, and I also think our obsession with sex. I think we are
obsession-
obsessed with sex in this culture. I think that girls see on television.
But why
film,
would the obsession with sex get into our
because
very
our
genes?
minds have an effect on our brains and on our bodies.
Don't tell me you're going to blame television for this, right?
No, I'm not blaming
can hear it
television. It's the culture. You
I
know,
think
we're
it's
growing up too fast.
The proliferation of kiddie beauty pageants. The mothers are saying, get sexy. Look like you have breasts when you don't have it. That's what they do. Another thing, I think it's something nutritional.
Yeah,
There's too much sugar. You know, there's
Sugar?
there's sugar-covered cereal, sugar-covered sugar cubes. I mean, I was at my
That
grandson's
would
house the other.
retard your growth.
Well, I don't know, but maybe it sets
Carl, I
it up.
think
You're going to
someone-
hear from the sugar lobby now, I know.
Women are going through menopause at an earlier age. It's the whole acceleration of our lives. We're moving too fast. The kids are growing up too fast. I have 2 children. I have a 16-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I can tell you their experience in childhood is vastly different from mine.
Yes,
They're growing up too fast, and their bodies are responding. It makes perfect sense to me.
There was also an item in the paper yesterday that 4th graders were sent off to a room as a disciplinary measure, 9 4th graders, and wound up engaging in sexual activities.
To Washington, D.C.
In Washington, D.C.
A big story there.
Again, they're exposed
Big
to too
story
much
there.
sex. It's
Right.
a loss of innocence.
you
they
think-
see
exposing
it, they see
themselves?
it.
Well, then you are
It's
blaming
cultural
TV.
stimulation.
You
It's
know,
not
you're
just TV. They
but
see it in their
but
homes.
Calvin Klein ads and
It's
stuff like that.
rampant in the culture, and it's what we think we value. We think we value sex above everything else in
You
this
know,
country.
I did in
do?
the 1960s. I had the Dick Van Dyke Show, and we weren't allowed to show that they lived in the same bed. They were in separate beds.
Right,
And I'm watching all these shows now, and I think they're very funny and very well written. But there is a situation comedy now that is not talking about the size of a person's member.
Yes.
They're not talking about. Did you have it yesterday? Did you?
You're right.
I saw 3 shows, one in a row. They said, "Did you get laid last night?" And they
Yes.
were talking about, and they were very casually. And I think kids see that, and they say,
No doubt
So you think
about it.
if we separate the beds in TV shows,
But-
those 10-year-olds with boobs, and suddenly actually are younger again.
Right, I don't understand that. Okay, we have to take a break. We'll come right back.
Politically incorrect.
And would like free tickets to Politically Incorrect, call 213-852-2655.
All right, welcome back to American Bandstand. Now, we were talking about Now, this study, importantly, is only about girls. The puberty age seems to be lowering only for girls. Now, I want to ask if there's a connection between the fact that, in my lifetime, certainly, the big change in sexuality has been with women. In my mother's day, they didn't used to, excuse me, put out.
And they were right.
And you think they were right?
No doubt about it. Why buy the cow if you can get the milk for free, is what my mother taught me. And she was right. Because
Every
women,
girl's mother taught him that.
and they should.
At least all
and
the
they
girls I
should.
went out with, their mother taught them that.
But you held to the girls in high regard because of that, and you worked harder to get them. If women give it away, the sexual revolution was devastating for women. It was also devastating for men. But it was worse for women because there was a time, it took us 2,000 years to get men to behave. 2,000 years to get them to marry us, to commit to us, to want to do what they should
What
be
are you
doing.
talking about? Men didn't marry in the Middle Ages?
No,
Of
I mean,
course
it
they
took
did.
us a long time to associate shame with that kind of behavior, with infidelity and so on. So we finally get to the point where men are behaving, and then we say, well, you know what? You don't have to behave. You can have it for nothing. And what was the result? We have single mothers all over this country raising children by themselves.
Now, Dave, you
Well,
must have a hard time getting women.
I do.
Now, the women who throw themselves at you, the women who say, take me, I'm yours.
Yeah.
But you got any leftovers,
Do you-
Dave? That's what I know.
Do you have respect for them?
No, it's strange. It's kind of overwhelming. When I was 15, I probably would have been like, yo, yeah. But now it's sort of more like, I should be your uncle or something. But or sometimes, and other times I leave the room after I've convinced them I'm their uncle and kick myself. And
But how important is it to have
God.
an
But I think-
intimate, loving relationship?
I think it's the
Isn't
only
that
thing that
the
matters.
most important thing? I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
do we want to
certainly.
sexualize women and say they're just, objects
but
for us to play with?
where are
I
you
think
getting-
that in the 60s, I definitely think that was an attempted suicide for the, or it wasn't an attempted suicide, but it was devastating for the feminist movement because suddenly they were using this modern kind of attitude that the men were using, and women, like, it was new. Don't be old-fashioned, on your back, and so I think it's true. I think it's terrible.
And look at what happened to women.
Wait a second. I think your premise is false. For all of us regular guys, believe me, they're not giving it away. Carl.
Oh, this is accurate, but it's not accurate.
They were in the 60s. They did in the 60s.
Well, the
and in
60s are a long
That
time
was
away.
the sexual revolution.
All women think every other woman is giving it away for free. Every
I
woman
think
thinks
we should
every
separate
other
the
woman
beds
is a
again.
You know
slut.
something?
I think it should happen.
Those girls in the 60s are today's mothers telling their daughters not to give it away.
Well, that's
for free.
because they raised
That's
their
what's
kids by
happening.
themselves.
Yeah, well, I think what has happened is, well, you're right about that, but I don't think that's because of a permissive sexual attitude. I think it's because the institution of marriage in many people's minds it's changed. It's not as sacrosanct as it used to be, and people don't stay together as long as they used to.
But that's the general permissiveness of the whole culture. And one of
Right.
the permissive things that we do is,
Well, what's the cure?
Or did, is to have sex.
What's the cure? Shall we reduce
You know what?
choices?
One of the cures, one of the cures is to tell women, do not give it away.
But
Make
you're-
him
but you're-
earn you. Make him invest
The
in you.
interesting thing is that men didn't tell women to give it away. Somehow
Right.
the women said,
I'm not saying it's
hey,
the men.
I
Yep.
want to
The men
give
and
it
the
to you
women are
because
in it
I want to
together.
be equal to you. See, when I was a kid, I had a different
Right.
perception. My memory of how men got women is you grabbed them by the hair, the cavemen, and they dragged them in, and that was your woman. And I said, I could never do that. My perception was wrong too because I was very shy. I said, if I have to do that, I'll never get a woman. No, I'm saying the woman did it to herself, actually.
I
Because the
agree
men-
with you. I
Yes,
agree with you.
okay.
And they
But-
did it together.
Yes.
And women now have to take it back and say, we're not going to do this anymore.
I think they've been taking
Make
it back,
him
though, in the
pay.
age of AIDS, don't you think?
Yeah, I think
Yes,
that's-
yes,
I
in
think
large
people-
part.
that's-
But I think
In
age
large
is
part, it's
maybe
changing.
I'm not. It's a sweeping statement, but I think the promiscuity that came from the '60s definitely made something like AIDS much
and
more.
I have to tell you, my son, who's
dev-
16 years old, is
impact.
much more conservative than my peers who are in their 40s. Much more conservative. He and his friends, they hang out in gangs. He is still a virgin.
He's in a gang?
Yeah.
Oh, he's in a
still a virgin and
conservative
he's
gang.
doing drive-by.
Your
Yeah,
son,
and
Alan
these big groups, they
Greenspan,
hang
George
together.
Well. It's a great gang. We have to take a break. I'm
Anyway.
sorry. I'll come back to this. We'll be right back. Okay, we got onto the sexual revolution there, and you said the old thing about, giving away the milk and the cow. But, if you posit that that is the big weapon that a woman has, is sex, isn't that...
No, that is not the only weapon a woman has. A woman
That's
has many
sort of
weapons.
what you're saying.
No,
you're
I'm saying that
once you fire that shot, you're out of ammo.
in part,
Unless
yes.
you're very, very, very good at it.
So then practice would be a good idea. So then starting earlier would be a good idea. But I'm not saying that that'd be a good idea. But what if people maybe if we drop the age of consent then and closed our eyes, maybe we made the year shorter, then people would get older earlier, and then that would have that whole thing going.
Well, if people are reaching puberty at such an earlier age, should we drop the age of consent?
I bet Roman Polanski would appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
He'd be able to come back in the country again.
I think if kids knew that they're going to be doing this for the rest of their lives and find out, we did a picture where people at 50 are very sexual. They get very passionate.
Thank you.
If we let kids know that you don't have to get it all in that first year.
That's right.
You're going to get it for the rest of your life until you die. And it's good.
I think that they should stay innocent longer.
The audience is very excited by that, Carl.
I think we should return to innocence. I think that we should,
That's tough.
extend the innocence
That is
longer.
a tough thing to do, to ever return to innocence. Do you know what the age of consent?
It is. Once it's gone, it's gone.
In Japan, is 12.
But she's
Age
right
of
about
consent?
kids.
In Japan, is
What
12.
does that mean?
You got to remember, though something. Teenagers are a fairly recent invention in the history of humankind. They were created by the Industrial Revolution. In agrarian societies, once you got to puberty, 12, 13, you got behind the plow, you got married, Romeo and Juliet, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that suddenly we got this buffer period between childhood and adulthood.
When you say you got behind the plow.
Yeah, because they're agrarian societies. Farmers.
Oh.
Farmers, Bill, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to...
I thought it was a gay thing.
I've got one late night now, aren't we? That's okay.
Yes, so that doesn't mean there weren't teenagers.
Well, no, they were not teenagers. They were adults. They were viewed as adults.
Long
Once they
adolescence.
turned, there was no long adolescence buffer period between childhood and adulthood.
I think
this is a rather modern development, but still, just because you're physically developed doesn't mean you're mentally developed. Doesn't mean you're socially developed. I think Judith's got a very good point there.
But nature made people able to have children at a certain. As soon as you start menstruating, you're a potential mother, and that's the way nature made it.
Why do you point at me?
Oh, I don't.
I guess nature also designed us to run around and sow the wild oats as much as we can, and that's also really not.
That's what nature did to you.
Yeah. Well,
There are big gender differences.
No, I said us.
And you're saying
I didn't say us like this.
And
I said us over here.
Well, okay.
And you're
I'm still a new.
And you're saying
And
the
there are
only way
big
to make it, you use the phrase make us behave. Now, we
Yes.
could be a little upset about that.
Why?
The idea that we are animals that have, why don't you get an electronic leash?
It's probably a good idea for some of you.
That would be probably a good idea.
Now, there are men, whose natural inclination is to want to go from tree to tree to tree like dogs do. Okay?
We're not talking about.
It happens. It happens.
Are we talking about
Women-
urination or sex?
Women, women do not have that same natural inclination. Women
Right.
want to nurture and
But-
raise
but if
children
you
in a
base-
protected environment.
But if you base your power on sex, isn't that at some point going to wane? Shouldn't your power over men not be based on sex?
No, because that's
ultimately
what
don't we-
men care about.
Bill,
in
what
large
she's saying
part.
in her delicate way is that men think with their you-know-what.
They do,
That's what she's saying.
especially
Yes.
during that period
Since
of
you're
time.
not on cable anymore, I won't be any more specific than that. They can know what I'm talking about.
But since that is always going to wane a little bit, shouldn't the relationship be based on something else
Yes,
that makes
of
us
course
want to
it should.
stay?
It should be based on intimacy and love and caring and building a family together and sharing experiences and being responsible and not leaving your children. My son, who's 16 years old, and all of his friends, most of them come from divorced families. Most of them were raised by
you
their
divorced?
mothers. Yes, or trying to be.
Well, get it. It's
in
worth
progress.
No, my son was raised by me. I did not marry his father.
I see.
And I raised him as a single mother from the time he was a little boy.
And here you are
And here I
criticizing
am.
society.
Well, look, I made some
Okay.
mistakes.
I have to take a break. We'll be right.
Join us tomorrow when our guests will be Debbie Allen, John Larroquette, Naomi Wolf, and John Gray.
Now, you mentioned that society has changed, and so our sexual mores have, like with the teenagers. What about the fact that when they first said, "Till death do you part," it was, death was like 40, so when you got married, you didn't have to live your whole life.
Yeah.
You say that in a tone that suggests that you think if you have to live your whole life with someone, it's a terrible thing.
It's more...
It shouldn't be a terrible thing. And it's not just living your life with your spouse. It's living your life with your children, with your grandchildren.
Hey, you're the one
with
who
your
went
friends,
through a
with the
divorce.
I want to go on
community.
record. I said till death do us part, and I'm married 53 years.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And I'm very frightened of death coming because we're starting to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just figured it out.
Yeah,
now.
just started having
I hope
fun.
it doesn't take me that
But don't
long.
you think that's been one of the most important things in your life?
Absolutely.
That's given to you in every way in your career and
My
having
kids,
your family
my wife
together?
and kids are really the single most important thing in my life. If I have a hit picture, that's fun. The other thing is important. That's where you live. That's where you live.
You're watching ABC.